Go ahead and officially call the June 9th, 2020 EDA meeting to order. Matt, do you want to do the official roll?
Yes, EDA President Bailey.
Aye.
EDA Member Carey.
Here.
EDA Vice President Dennis.
Here.
EDA Member Myers. EDA Member Pash.
Here.
EDA Member Smoot.
Here.
EDA Member Thewas.
Here.
All right, sounds good. Next item on our agenda is approval of the minutes. We have two, so we'll do the 3.1 first, which is the approval of the May 12th, 2020 EDA meeting minutes. Do I have, first of all, is there any changes or corrections? And if not, I'll need a motion to approve those minutes.
A motion to approve the minutes.
All right, motion by Mr. Carey. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Pash. All right. No other discussion. Again, we do have to do a roll. So, Matt, you want to do the roll?
Yes. EDA President Bailey.
Yes.
EDA Member Carey.
Yes.
EDA Vice President Dennis.
Yes.
EDA Member Myers.
Present.
EDA Member Pat.
Yes.
EDA Member Smoot.
Yeah. Yes.
EDA Member Thewas.
Yes.
And let the record show that EDA member Myers is here. Looks like he's having fun outside, maybe.
Thought it was roll call, you guys.
All right, there we go. There we go. All right, so 3.2 is also approval of the minutes, which is approval of the June 2nd, 2020 special EDA meeting minutes. So if we could, if nobody has any corrections, we'll also need a motion to approve on this one.
I'll motion to approve those minutes as well.
All right, so we have a motion by EDA member Carey. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by EDA member Dennis. All right, any discussion? All right, Matt, you do the roll again.
EDA President Bailey.
Aye.
EDA Member Carey.
Aye.
EDA Vice President Dennis.
Aye.
EDA Member Myers.
Yay.
EDA Member Pash.
Aye.
EDA Member Smoot.
Aye.
EDA Member Thewas.
Aye.
Fantastic, thanks everybody. So we'll move to 4, which is business items. 4.1 is the economic development update and business inquiry. And I'm assuming, Christine, are you going to take us through this one?
That'll be Matt.
Oh, it's Matt. I'm sorry, Matt. Okay.
No problem. Thank you, EDA President Bailey, EDA members. So a quick run through as our economic development update. Apologize, I'm working with 2 screens, so I'm trying to. All right, there we go. So first, the Beige Book came out at the beginning of May. Employment fell significantly since the last report. However, mass layoffs have slowed in May compared to April, so there is some good news there. Initial unemployment claims have also fallen significantly in the past couple weeks. Consumer spending has declined due to some shelter-in-place guidelines, or because of the shelter-in-place guidelines. A survey in late April found that 1/3 of Minnesota tourism firms have reported no revenue over the past 30 days. Additionally, commercial construction has fallen, with construction firms reporting some significant delays in projects and a few of them being canceled overall. Commercial real estate activity has fallen, with vacancy rates expected to increase in the retail and office space. However, some good news in the industrial sector, the overall sector is expected to remain level or increase as a result of the need for warehousing, and e-commerce businesses continue to do well as a result of the shift in the economy. Up North Plastics, the exterior of the new building is substantially complete. Interior fire suppression and underground plumbing, rain leader plumbing, and mechanical work are currently taking place. Up North Plastics has also submitted for a plan review and a conditional use permit to add a guardhouse and a way station to provide a secondary access to their site off of Deal Avenue. Renewal by Anderson, their temporary certificate of occupancy has been issued. They're currently doing some work on the parking lot in front of their building and around the back. Exterior landscaping, however, is not complete, so that will still need to be completed as they move forward. 80th and Hemingway Apartments, this was a project that we discussed at our last meeting. They have submitted their plans for footing and foundation. That portion of the project now is currently under review in our building division, and it is expected that the project will close on the land at the end of June, although per our agreement that we agreed upon last meeting. They do have to the end of July if they need it. PetSmart, this project is substantially completed with the exterior being done. They are looking to get their temporary certificate of occupancy next Monday. They have a review scheduled with their building division for the interior. Exterior space storage, this is the third building of a planned 5 buildings altogether. However, this third space did get their temporary certificate of occupancy that was issued. Additionally, exterior grading and landscaping still need to be complete on the project. And with that, Mayor Bailey, EDA President Bailey, and EDA members, I'll turn it over for comments and questions.
All right, EDA members, any questions for Matt on his topics? All right, not seeing any. Thank you, Matt. So I guess we'll move to the next business item, which is 4.2, which is the award of the Small Business Emergency Assistance Program grants. I'm assuming, Christine, you're taking this one.
Yes, I am. Just working on the screen here. Of course, it went fast. So, EDA members, as we've met previously to discuss this, our Small Business Emergency Assistance Grant is in place due to the pandemic and the Governor Walz's stay-at-home orders, in particular to Executive Orders 04 and 08. The initial grant program was approved in early May. We allocated $300,000 to allow for grants up to $10,000. In that first grant round, we did see 10 grantees awarded, and the EDA and City Council did award those, and checks were handed out last week. We did do a second round. There was concerns that we weren't getting enough in kind of advertising from the business community. So we had a second round in which the deadline ended May 29th. We had 5 applications: Carboni's Kitchen and Pub, Cedarhurst, Cottage Grove Florist, Hound Around Resort, and Salon 80 Hair Studio. In discussions, and as I had mentioned at our last meeting, discuss with businesses kind of why they weren't applying. And so at our last meeting, requested guideline changes. So the EDA on June 2nd, and then the City Council on June 3rd approved revised guidelines. So again, it's based on those 2 executive orders being located in Cottage Grove. The items that we changed and revised were, instead of being in business 2 years, it was 1 year. And then we upped the number of full-time employees from being capped at 25 to 70, and then making 3.5 million or less in annual gross income instead of capping it at the million. Ellers and Associates, who's our financial consultant, is serving as our third-party consultant for the grant process. So they've reviewed all the applications to date to make sure they meet our eligibility guidelines and that they were in a good standing before the pandemic. So before you is recommending consideration of $10,000 grants for those 5 businesses: Carboni, Cedarhurst, Cottage Grove Florist, Hound Around, and Salon 80. They will come back before you as part of the process in approximately 2 months to share with you how they use those funds for eligible expenses, such as paying for utilities, their lease, any other business expenses related to the pandemic. So with that, I can take any questions, and before you is the recommendation.
All right, EDA, is there any questions for Christine on the new 5, I guess is probably the best way to put it, with some of the changes that we made from last week's special EDA meeting and the council meeting? All right, seeing no questions or comments at this point, then I guess what I'll look for is a motion from somebody on the EDA, and you can see the approval recommendation is up on the screen.
Mayor, I'll make the motion for us to approve the 5 small business emergency assistance grants, each for $10,000 to Carboni's Kitchen and Pub, Cedarhurst, Cottage Grove Florist, Hound Around Resort, and Salon 80 Hair Studio.
All right, for $50,000.
I'll second that.
All right, so we have a motion by Councilmember Dennis, second by EDA Vice President Dennis, sorry, Steve, and seconded by EDA Member Thews. Any further discussion? All right, Matt, will you please do the roll?
EDA President Bailey,
Yes.
EDA Member Carey,
Yes.
EDA Vice President Dennis,
Aye.
EDA Member Myers,
Yes.
EDA Member Pash,
Aye.
EDA Member Smoot,
Aye.
EDA Member Thews.
Aye.
Perfect. That's awesome. Thanks, everybody. All right, the next one is a little bit of a newer one for us this year. We've been doing this in the past, which is the Facade Improvement Program. But this year we have a little extra twist to it due to, again, the COVID-19 pandemic. So, which is the Facade Improvement Application. So, Christine, are you taking this one also?
Actually, Mayor, I'll be taking this one. I apologize. We didn't see the list of who's taking who.
Yes, thank you. That's why I was asking. So, Matt, I guess you've got it. Thank you, Matt.
Yes, thank you, EDA President Bailey, EDA members. Just a brief kind of introduction of how we got to where we are. Sorry. The Facade Improvement Program is used by communities generally around the metro to incentivize qualifying exterior improvements to commercial buildings. The overall purpose is to help beautify buildings, increase consumer awareness of businesses within those buildings, and sustain a healthy commercial stock. In 2019, the City of Cottage Grove EDA approved a Facade Improvement Program for its initial program funding of $25,000. The recipient of that award was Oasis Chiropractic at 7424 East Point Douglas Road. And then you can see the pictures here in front of you show basically what the building looked like on the top of the screen before the facade renovations took place. And then the picture on the lower part of your screen is what the building looked like after facade improvements took place. And we did award those funds upon completion of the project back in December of 2019. The 2020 Facade Improvement Program was marketed to existing businesses and commercial property owners. We did have another $25,000 that was awarded for the budget year of 2020. This consisted of for marketing purposes, consisted of a mailing and introductory letter with brochure to all the businesses and commercial properties in the community. Additionally, staff reached out to properties and businesses of interest with program details for further marketing. This year's program received 4 applications in total. I will mention, though, however, there were others that were interested. However, due to the COVID-19 pandemic that is currently taking place and due to some rent issues and other foreseen issues, they did decide to delay their projects until subsequent years, but potentially 2021 or beyond. So each applicant was judged on the following criteria. First, location within the community based on our priority map, which I'll share here in a second. Ability to encourage improvements to surrounding businesses, ability to improve appearance and attractiveness of an area. They had to be consistent with the comprehensive plan and be compliant with all city codes. Priority also was given to local businesses over national and regional tenants. And then building owners who have not previously been awarded a grant will be considered again before those who have not received funding. So to share the priority map, when we're looking at the criteria, when we started this program in 2019, we thought it was important to target certain areas. So we broke it up into zones. First, priority zone 1 is in yellow, and that basically covers our 80th Street and Jamaica Avenue corridors. And then priority zone 2 is along West Point, Douglas, and then the commercial corridors around Hinton and 70th, and then additionally Keats and 70th Street as well. So basically every commercially zoned district or parcel in our community is part of the program. We just broke two different priority zones. So for our first applicant was from 7998 Hardwood Avenue South. This is the Culvers building located off the 80th Street exit along Highway 61 and 10. The building is solely used for the Culvers restaurant and it is an owner-occupied business. The project consists of exterior painting of the building, new gooseneck lights, new main entrance door, new exterior signage, awning replacement, and a patio umbrella replacement. In total, this project was $86,392 in eligible expenses based on the project guidelines. And then overall, this represents a 71% private to public funding ratio. So the picture in front of you is what the applicant submitted for what the project will look like once it is complete. What you'll see here is the Culvers sign will be replaced. There'll be new awnings entered in. Additionally, the upper portion of the building will all be repainted. There is also some landscaping that is included. Our program guidelines allow for 50% of all landscaping costs to be covered. So the applicant did submit $4,000 in landscaping, of which $2,000 is available for funding. So that would be 50%. So $1,000 overall could be potentially covered by the grant if it is awarded. The second applicant was for 8475 East Point Douglas Road, or Jamaica Square. This is located off the intersection of Jamaica Avenue and East Point Douglas Road. This building is a multi-tenant office and resale building that is currently occupied by Papa Murphy's Tobacco Store, the National Karate, Cottage Barbers, Bellinell and Spas, and 2 vacant units currently. Overall, the project consists of repainting the entire building for a 2-tone paint look, replacing the awnings to match the newly painted building, installing new lighting fixtures on the exterior of the building, and installing a new monument sign for the building. In total, the project has $63,670 in eligible expenses based on the project guidelines. This represents a 61% private to public funding ratio. So the picture before you here, the top picture in your screen is the current Jamaica Square and what's currently there. As you can see, the awnings are different colors. There's a kind of a weird, maybe weird's not the right word, but a painting look that overflows the facade of the building currently. The picture below you is what the applicant has submitted of what they would like the building to look. They're going for a 2-tone color look with some of the trim and edging, the building being in one main color, and then they're replacing all the awnings to match that paint look, and additionally they'll be replacing the exterior lighting. One thing I do want to mention as well with this project is the applicant did submit an additional $52,000 for parking lot replacement. This is not something that is covered under our program guidelines, so they're not eligible. However, the $52,000 would be considered as part of the total project in terms of completion before they would get reimbursement. So that's just something to note as we look at this project as well, is that they are looking to make a greater investment additionally than what's been submitted. It's just that that project cost does not qualify per program guidelines. The next applicant is 7750 Harkness Avenue South. This is the shops at Gateway North. This is a multi-tenant building that's currently off Harkness Avenue North of 80th Street and the East Point Douglas intersection. This building is a multi-tenant commercial building occupied by Jimmy John's, Anytime Fitness, Rustic Floral Boutique, Sushi Cafe, State Farm Insurance, and there are currently 3 vacant units within this tenant space. The project consists of new canvas canopy covers, painting with existing chain canopies, replacing all tower top and wall covering sheet metal with modern black sheet metal, replacing all exterior lights, and repairing and painting existing tenant upper EFS storefronts eggshell and black. In total, the project has $55,000 eligible expenses based on the project guidelines. It should be noted the applicant did submit a range, so we are using the lower range, so they could cost as much up to $75,000, but for the sake of considering this program, we use the lower range of $55,000. Using that number of 55, this represents a 55% private to public funding ratio. So that the applicant did submit a rendering of what they would like to do. Now, one thing to note before I go into detail what they're looking at is that this top picture is what they want the building to look at when it is completed. However, due to the current COVID-19 pandemic that's currently taking place, the economic conditions, they are looking to do this in phases. The overall budget would be broken down into so this year and then subsequent years. So for this year, what they're looking to do is replace all the awnings, additionally repaint the metal portion awnings as well, take out some of the outdated fencing that's currently on the building along with this decorations that's on the side. Additionally, look at repainting. So that would all be in phase 1. The one thing that they would not be covering this year is, if you look at this image, all the parapets that are in the building will be reconstructed. That is still something they're looking to do, but that would be done in subsequent years. and not as part of this project taking place. The last applicant was for 7501 80th Street South. This is the Hillside Professional Building. The Hillside Professional Building is located on 80th Street across from the former City Hall, which is slated to become a future four-story apartment building. The proposed project would consist of restoration of exterior stucco finish. In total, the project is submitted for $10,185, which the applicant was requesting $5,000 in funding. However, since this application is substantially just for general maintenance items, this is not something that does qualify for the program. So we did not move this applicant further along in the process. So in terms of discussion in the overall guideline or the overall applicants, based on the guidelines that are for the program, the recommendation is that the overall project be submitted by 2 Culvers, which should be for the 2020 grant amount of $25,000. However, due to current economic conditions, the recommendation is that another $50,000 be taken out of the EDA trust to support the Jamaica Square and Shops at Gateway North projects. Overall, this is we're recommending this due to the fact that business and commercial property owners right now are struggling with lease payments and additionally lease forgiveness. So any commercial properties that are looking to continue to better their building and look to improve our commercial stock and retain its healthiness in our community, we believe should be supported. It also helps our supporting economic growth within the community. And additionally, it supports construction trades and continued employment within the community. But we also believe that these projects to be supported based on the following criteria that's within the guidelines. They are all visible from Highway 61, and they're all within the priority area 1 of the project. The projects are all comprehensive and have a high leverage of private investment to public investment. They improve the appearance of 80th Street and the Jamaica Avenue commercial corridors and its visibility from Highway 61 and 10. They're all consistent with their comprehensive plan. And then they supply attractive and updated commercial units for future businesses into our community. And then overall, moving forward in terms of project contracts, if they are awarded, all contracts before they are accepted would ensure that nothing is dispersed until the project is substantially complete. These programs do require additionally that business or property owners submit copies of all paid invoices or receipts along with photos of the completed work. Only after all items are found to match the applicant and that are completed would grant funds be awarded to the applicant. So with that, there are 2 recommendations. We do have David Reller, who is the broker and property manager who is running the property project over at Shops at Gateway North. I know there were some questions specifically about that project, so we asked David to join us at this meeting. So he's available for questions as well. But there are 2 motions before you. One is to approve the Culvers for the 2020 Facade Improvement Grant Program, and then the second motion is to authorize the approval of an additional $50,000 for the Jamaica Plaza and Shops at Gateway North project. So with that, I'll turn it over to EDA President and EDA members for any comments or questions.
All right, EDA, excuse me, EDA members, just as a side note for everybody, you know, that as you can see, the original grant program is for the $25,000, which staff is recommending for Culvers, but due to, again, this COVID situation, the fact is we did have some additional applicants that do want to improve our community. And one of the neat things, I guess, if I would say, is that they're, even under the current environment, they're willing to invest in their facilities here in Cottage Grove. And our belief is that it makes total sense that we would support them in doing that, even under the current environment, because it does show, in my opinion, longevity in the fact that they want to continue to operate in our community because they're going to be investing money to update their facilities. So EDA, any questions for Matt or anybody on staff?
Mayor, and I have a few.
Yes, EDA member, Vice President Dennis.
All right, thank you. The first one pertains to option, I believe, number 2. And there was a $55,000 amount that they're looking to do to replace part of the parking surface there. Just so we have some idea of what $55,000 buys, how much of that parking lot would actually be replaced, repaired? Is it going to be a mill and overlay? Is it going to be complete? Do you have any details on that you could share?
EDA Vice President Dennis, yes. So what they're proposing is mill and overlay, I believe. I'm sorry, I don't have the pros, but I think it was the top 2 inches. I think the city administrator and engineer Levitt could kind of give us more insight into that process, but it is the total parking lot that they would be redoing.
Okay, because that particular parking lot, and I know the mayor's had numerous conversations with the gentleman that owns the building there, the property. That's probably the worst parking lot that we have in the city. And, you know, I guess the one question I would have, knowing and understanding a little bit about roadway reconstructions, is a mill and overlay going to be adequate to address the underlying nature of that parking lot? Because they've got craters down there. And I know we've had to go down there and help out with some things, but if Administrator Levitt would not mind weighing in with their engineering background, I'd appreciate knowing.
Well, thank you, Vice President Dennis and members of the EDA. You are right. A mill and overlay in this case will probably provide, you know, about 5 years worth of improvement to that actual drive surface, but the actual longevity of the parking lot probably will not be fully sustained with the mill and overlay situation. But I'm guessing the cost to do a full removal and, as you mentioned, to deal with some of those craters would require some additional excavation of material to bring in additional Class 5. My estimation is it would probably double the cost of his parking lot construction. So unfortunately, it looks like he's looking to make an improvement that has a short term benefit and maybe not a greater long-term benefit, but that may be just a financial decision he's making at this point.
Okay, so I think based upon some of the histories that we've had with that particular stakeholder, and I know we're talking about not paying anything out until, you know, projects are complete, but I'd like to see, and I know that I had a great talk with Matt last week, and we talked a little bit about, you know, trying to provide some accountability that these things actually do get taken care of once and for all. So if there would be some opportunity for some language, should the EDA decide to go forward with this before it comes to come, that we would have something there to address that, I think that would be a good thing perhaps to look at. So that would be the first point. And then on the second question that I have, I want to talk about option number 3. And I do appreciate Mr. Reller coming in. I see him on the screen up there. I'm wondering if he could kind of take us through the scope of this project philosophically, to give us some of his thoughts relative to the design of what they're looking to do. I know when Matt and I had talked, one of the points of consideration was that he wanted to have a greater visibility to 80th Street. And I'm curious, when you look at the parapets at the top and taking those off and going to a design that's slanted but reduced on the one side, also taking off the roof caps and some of the other infrastructure up on the building, would that not lower the overall elevation of the facility itself, so it won't have as high of a stature? And then I'd also like to know, as far as the colors and everything that are put forward there, it's a rather muted look, I guess I would say. There doesn't seem to be as much contrast, either in terms of architectural lines or colors. So I'm wondering if Mr. Reller could kind of take us through some of this and share his thoughts so that we can learn as an EDA what he's thinking of.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So as far as the visibility, I think, you know, you are correct on kind of the lower profile being, you know, just physically not as tall, which would indicate that it's not going to be as visible from 80th Street. I personally have not stood on 80th to look at visibility, so I can't really speak to that, but just kind of generally from the renderings, that's what I'm gathering. As far as the kind of continuity aspect of the center and kind of what we're going for, is this is kind of what the design there is what we're seeing, and what we've had a few different architectural and aesthetic consultants take a look at this, and I can just say from experience is that it's kind of what everybody's moving to as far as hard lines, more modern color configurations, kind of removal of kind of, I guess, dated, not architecture, but kind of visuals. And with that, I'm referencing the fencing there. And kind of the, I guess, overall goal here is to modernize the center, mostly aesthetically. It's a relatively new build center. The actual structural building is in good shape. You know, and we think this is a great opportunity to, you know, as you mentioned, to invest long term here with the city as a partner. And we feel this is going to be a better draw to make our center more attractive, as well as kind of bring up that area of the city. So.
Okay, well, thank you for addressing that. So basically what I'm really hearing is that this is more contemporary in terms of, you know, building and facade designs and what you guys are seeing through the use of your consultants, correct?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, that's the questions that I had. And then last but not least, Matt, when we go to issue the payment on this one, since it's being done in phases, where would our payment actually fall into place for this project? Oh, you're on mute.
On mute, Matt.
Thank you very much. Sorry about that. EDA Vice President EDA Vice President Dennis, for 2020, we'd be looking at just the project that would be for us, which the applicant submitted, which ran a range between 55,000 to 75,000. So that would cover the items that we discussed in the proposal in terms of the awnings being replaced, the repainting of the metal awnings, the repainting of some of the upper FS to black and eggshell based on what the applicant submitted. So that would just be covering that. Once those items are completed and invoices and receipts are submitted, we would be reimbursing for those expenses. The subsequent restructuring of the parapets would have to be a resubmission by the applicant to be covered. That would be something we'd have to consider in subsequent years if we wanted to, based on what other applications we get in 2021 or possibly 2022, depending on when the applicant, if the applicant.
Okay, thank you. I'm good, Mayor.
All right, thanks, EDA Vice President Dennis. Matt, the only other question I had for you on the second one, and that was obviously the Jamaica Square, other than the parking lot. I did notice this time you did add in there the monument sign. Is that something he did come back with after we had a conversation?
Yes, EDA President Bailey, that is something that the applicant additionally added along with the restructuring of the parking lot, and that is included as an eligible expense per program guidelines. So that is included in our eligible expenses as the addition of a monument sign for the building.
Perfect. Okay, that's why I just was curious. I assumed it because I saw that was an addition. So, all right. Any other questions for the EDA?
I have a couple if I could.
Yes, EDA member Carey.
My first question, so with this program, is there any qualification, similar to, I guess, tax increment financing, stating that without this funding, the project would otherwise not occur?
EDA member Carey, tax increment financing has to pass the but-for test, and I believe that's what you're discussing. And on overall, this project does not have the same qualification as the but-for test, which states that but for the use of this public money, the project would not occur. That is something that's unique to tax increment financing, and additionally, other financing mechanisms that usually have a larger amount. That is not something that is included in the facade improvement program.
Okay, and just because we were just talking about the grant program, and I know there was a different source for the funds for the grant program we just discussed. Are the funds here, are these taxpayer dollars, for lack of a better term? Is that what we're looking to allocate?
The EDA, the 25,000 that initially was allocated as part of the economic development budget for 2020, that's what is already included in our budget. And then additionally, the 50,000 that is being propose out of the EDA trust fund is a separate fund that is used from donations that would be removed, so they're not coming out of the general fund, general taxpayer money. Although, if I'm incorrect in saying that, I know our finance director, Roland, can also give more additional details on the EDA trust fund.
I would just mention, this is Christine, EDA member Carrie. The funds for the facade, the additional 50,000, and the small business grant program are both coming out of that EDA trust. So neither one of them are taxpayer dollar funds.
Okay. Makes you feel a little better about it, because I guess as David stated, two of these buildings are fairly modern, you know, with both Culvers and the shops. And so just wanted to make sure that I noted that, as it seems like very minor changes to their facade that honestly I don't think, you know, if I was driving past after they made the improvements, that I would even notice the changes that were made, with the exception of Jamaica Square, which obviously has been struggling with vacancy and I think certainly could use some help, and then the parking lot, as Steve had mentioned. So yeah, just, you know, wondering, is this the best use of those funds to stimulate economic development or activity in the community? Is just certainly something that's come to mind for me, and want to make sure that we're thinking that, you know, through and how we can best help these businesses, best stimulate, you know, the economy within the city. So.
Okay. Thank you, EDA member Carrie. Any other questions for or comments from the EDA? All right. Seeing none, then I guess we have two motions before us. We'll take them separately. So I would look for the EDA to do, if they would, motion number one.
Hey, Matt, is it possible that I can go at the end of the roll?
Yeah, I can move it. EDA member Carey, I can move it to the end of the roll.
Thank you.
I'll motion to approve the Culvers of Cottage Grove projects with the award letter and a contract for $25,000 as a part of the Facade Improvement Grant Program.
All right. So I have a motion by EDA member Thews. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by EDA member Myers. Any further discussion? All right. Seeing none, Matt, will you please do the roll?
EDA President Bailey?
Aye.
EDA Vice President Dennis?
Aye.
EDA member Myers?
Yes.
EDA member Pash?
Aye.
EDA member Smoot?
Aye.
EDA member Thewis?
Aye.
EDA member Carey?
Yes.
All right. And then we have the addition this year, which is item number 2 on the recommendations. I would need a motion on this one.
I'll motion.
All right.
I just read it, right?
Yes, please.
Okay. I motion to authorize approval of an additional $50,000 of funding for the program through the EDA Trust Fund, with an award letter and contract for $25,000 to Jamaica Plaza LLC and $25,000 to Crown Estates Family LLP, the shops at Gateway North.
All right. So I have a motion by EDA member Posh. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by EDA member Smoot. Any further discussion? All right. Seeing none, again, Matt, do the roll.
EDA President Bailey?
Aye.
EDA member or EDA Vice President Dennis?
Aye.
EDA member Myers?
Aye.
EDA member Pash?
Aye.
EDA member Smoot?
Aye.
EDA member Thewis?
Aye.
EDA member Carey?
Aye.
All right. Motions carry on both of them. So thank you. And looking forward to seeing the improvements being made to those facilities in Cottage Grove. And then on our official last item under business items, we have 4.4, which is 9165 and 8991 West Point Douglas property appraisal. And Matt, you're taking us through this one.
Yes, thank you, EDA President Bailey and EDA members. Just a quick introduction. Based on the Minnesota State Statute 469.101, the Economic Development Authority and economic development authorities around the state have the power to purchase property to create economic development within the community. The Cottage Grove EDA has previously purchased property, and they do facilitate this development in the business park, and also look to remove blight, such as what we did, the EDA did back in last year with 7470 East Point Douglas and purchasing that property and removing that building. In all the cases when the EDA looks to purchase properties, they look to leverage these parcels into investment in the form of either property tax or jobs in the community. So with that being the case, currently the properties located at 9165 and 8991 West Point Douglas are both for sale. Both of these properties are part of the Langdon Village area. You can see on the image below, 9165 is the larger building. This is the former Majestic Ballroom that is currently just south of 61, and then the smaller property of 8991 is just to the east of that property. So as I mentioned, both of these parcels are part of the Langdon Village area. The Langdon Village is comprised of 65 acres, which currently includes 12 residential properties, 2 commercial properties, and the Cottage Grove Public Works facility. The EDA currently owns 8 acres just south of 96th Street, and per the comprehensive plan, the Langdon Village concept plan and development overall of the area calls for a walkable mix of commercial and community businesses and activities, serving a new higher density neighborhood as well as the broader city. It could expand the Cottage Grove's retail both in terms of land area and in terms of offering a different character of retail development. So just to go over briefly, the concept plan that was completed by Stantec in 2018 calls, as I mentioned, for high density further in the south of the area. This is just to note too, as we're looking at it, north is a little bit cockeyed here, so it's pointing this direction. But so higher density further in the rear of the Langdon Villages with commercial properties abutting closer to Highway 61 in West Point Douglas, and then we have some mixed use properties here. In terms of the properties that we're looking at relative to the Langdon Village concept, that is these 2 parcels right here. Additionally, the 8 acres that is currently owned by the EDA, and actually these properties last year or 2018 were looked at by MWF Properties for workforce housing development. Unfortunately, the financing has not occurred yet for that project, so that has currently on pause, but these are the parcels that are currently owned by the EDA. Additionally, our public works facility is here as well. One thing to note additionally, as we look at this concept plan, it does call for the restructuring of 100th Street and County Road 19, which is something Washington County is currently looking on. There has been no set alignment, but per this concept plan, and one of the ideas that is being considered is rerouting 100th Street and County Road 19 along the edge of Langdon Village area as well, which would be another draw for the development of this area. Again, though, Washington County has not come up with any definitive plans of where that road will be moving forward yet. So one of the items that we want to discuss as we're considering looking at these parcels and doing an appraisal for these parcels is the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats for the Langdon Village area, just as we continue to look to develop that area per our vision for the community. Some of the strengths is overall the sites have great sightlines and visibility and access from Highway 61 and 10. Currently, we know at the Jamaica exit there's about 44 to 45,000 vehicles that pass on 61 through that area. Additionally, it allows us to remove obsolete and legal non-conforming uses and blighted buildings, which we'll talk about more in depth later in the presentation. Additionally, it allows us gain controlling of interest of parcels to leverage maximum investment for the community in this area. In terms of some of the weaknesses, right now there are real strong traffic counts in the area in terms of off of West Point Douglas to attract the type of commercial development we like to see. So until Langdon develops further in terms of high density, like the MWF Properties project I discussed, we're going to have to wait for those traffic counts to start to rise before I think true commercial development will look to develop in the area. Additionally, infrastructure currently is not available at the site, and any project will need assistance in extending the needed water and sewer and things like that to the site. And then finally, there is no current or future plans for transportation within Langdon Village, which generally helps to create and attract high density residential. However, some of the opportunities is that these 2 parcels do create some long-term investment in the community. We really, looking at these parcels, look at it as a long-term investment, which allows for the city to help develop its vision for what they would like to see in the Langdon Village area for Cottage Grove. The parcels also can be competitively priced to allow for development before more costly sites at both 80th Street and Jamaica. And additionally, there is potential as we're looking to develop Langdon Village is to purchase additional parcels surrounding the site to create the Langdon Village master plan that we previously discussed. In terms of some of the threats, retailers and restaurants generally want to be closer to 80th Street and East Point Douglas intersection as well as Jamaica Avenue, so that there is some difficulty there, just as I previously mentioned. Additionally, both of these properties have remained on the market during a strong economic period without being sold. So again, this goes back to what we need to, if any development here, we need to look at it as a long-term investment. And then finally, Langdon Village, as we're looking at Shops at Cottage View, it might be a direct competitor with Shops at Cottage View, which is at the intersection of East Point Douglas and County Road 19, looking to develop that site as well. So in terms of the two parcels, both 9165 and 8991 have current buildings on their parcels. However, the potential for purchasing these properties is controlling really the land for development. 9165 West Point Douglas is the former Majestic Ballroom site and sits on 9.27 acres. Overall, the building is in disrepair and unusable. There's cracks in the foundation. The roof has holes in it. So any development on that property would have to remove the building moving forward. 8991 West Point Douglas is currently a single-family residential home that sits on 1.8 acres. Both of these parcels, per the concept plan and per our comprehensive plan, long-term use calls for these properties to be commercial and/or mixed use. So both are legal. Well, the property at 8991 is a legal non-conforming use, while as the building at 9165 is just in such a state of disrepair that it could not be reused for a commercial structure moving forward. In terms of appraisals and quotes, 2 quotes for appraisals were reached out for the properties. One was for BRKW Real Estate Valuation Services, and the other one was for Patch and Mesner Valuation Counselors. These quotes would be used to determine if an offer should be made on the properties and would set a baseline for any potential proposal. The BRKW quote came in at $5,800 and the Patch Mesner quote came in at $4,500. The funds to pay for these the appraisal that would be selected would come out of the EDA trust fund based on the overall cost of the appraisals. The recommendation is to use the Patch Mesner quote of $4,500. So with that, the recommendation is before you, EDA, for that appraisal from Patch Mesner, and I'll turn it over to EDA President Bailey for comments or questions.
All right, EDA members, any questions on what Matt presented? I guess I'll just kick a couple things into the motion here. You know, similar to what we did last year or 2 years ago with the property along East Point Douglas Road, when opportunities do arise, our EDA in the past, even prior to myself and our Councilmember Dennis being on the EDA, would look at as opportunities to pick up parcels, to either put parcels together to create a larger opportunity or for reinvestment for the future. And in this particular case, that's what it appears that we're at least looking at doing once the appraisal process comes through. My question for staff is maybe 2. One of the things that we did have a little bit of an issue with, if you recall back on East Point Douglas when we took over that property, there was some ground contamination. On the appraisal process, I don't know that they checked for that before we purchased, though. Would we be checking to make sure there isn't any ground contamination as it relates to, oil dumped, things like that, which I know we ran into a bit of an issue with the site on East Point Douglas.
EDA President Bailey, I would probably start with that one. In this case, we would not be conducting a phase 1 or phase 2 environmental review. Based upon the appraisals, if the value is something that the EDA wishes to pursue, before we would close on the property, we would have a phase 1 and phase 2 environmental documents completed to look at that situation. During the appraisal process, they may look at if there's any recorded documents on spills or tanks at the PCA, but they would not be doing a full-fledged environmental phase 1. We can make an offer contingent upon phase 1 or phase 2 being completed. So at this point, they would not be specifically looking at that.
Okay, but eventually we would get that detail once the initial appraisals come through.
That would be a condition of our offer.
Okay, and then the only other question I had is regarding the I guess the buildings themselves. And be frank with you, not so much on the house, though it would be, I guess, understandable to do it both. But being that the former Majestic Ballroom is in such disrepair, is there opportunities for monies that we would have access to in order to get rid of those buildings that don't necessarily come through the city, if you know what I mean?
Thank you, President Bailey. Yes, we would be looking at other funding sources to remove the blight. The building would obviously qualify as that, so we could look to either our partners in the county or potentially look to our state partners for opportunities for costs related to the removal of the building.
Okay. All right. Those are my questions. EDA, any other questions for this item?
Here, I do.
Yes, ED Member Vice President Dennis.
Okay, thank you. I looked up the value or the purported value of the house on Zillow, and they've got that listed at $492,000. And I don't know. I know we have Member Smoot here that would be able to maybe provide expert analysis on how close Zillow is to reality. But we're talking a pretty decent amount of money for that property, and I'm sure the larger commercial piece down there is going to be even more costly to have, or to obtain, I should say. And I guess my cautionary on this one, and you know, I had zero reservation in picking up the piece on East Point Douglas, because that's in a commercial zone. Langdon Township, or village, or whatever we want to call that, has been something that has been a very, very long-term goal or objective of the city to try to develop. And the one point that was interesting on Matt's SWOT analysis is that even during the time period of incredible economic development and economy, there really had been no viable interest in that site. And now we know that's a blight. It looks horrible. We get a lot of questions and responses and feedback from people on that. But I guess on this particular one, my cautionary is that I would rather see this be more of a developer-driven initiative, as opposed to us putting in what could be just a tremendous amount of money. You know, we've done some things here. We're drawing down on the trust fund for numerous things, including the business assistance program, which we did here this morning. So what I tend to do is I tend to look at these things, and when I use my value system to define whether or not I think it's a viable purchase or investment, I tend to think about how many years of donations would be required to cover that. And in this case, because we usually get about $330,000 a year, it would be multiple years of trying to refill some of those pots. So, like I say, I've got some cautionaries to put on that. I've lived in the community for over 31 years, and Langdon has been something that people have talked about for a long time, and we're really no closer to seeing anything happen there now than we were 31 years ago when I came into the city. So that's just my respectful feedback, and I'll wait to see when we get to the time here to vote.
Okay, any other EDA comments at this point? Just in a general sense, you know, one of the comments I would mention as it relates to the Langdon Village area is there has been, as EDA Vice President Dennis mentioned, this area has been a long-term vision. I do believe, and being on the council as a council member before being mayor, there was development opportunities down there that at that particular time the city council at that time did not, in my opinion, have or the EDA have the foresight to improve some of the infrastructure that needed to be happening down there. So I do think that there's two issues here that we've also got to look for as we go forward. One is once there is connectivity with the roadway infrastructure coming from the south into this area, I think that will increase the opportunity for development of this area. And secondly, there is no sewer and water in there right now. And back in the day, that I recall, the one particular business specifically, or the two, I should say, that wanted to go in there, the challenge had a lot to do with the cost of the infrastructure to actually get in there, and it wasn't even so much the road as it was water and sewer. So I do think, unlike some of the other areas that are already connected into the MUSA, if you will, the fact is this particular area has got some unique, some unique challenges. But I'm also, I guess this piece of this puzzle is what we're looking to spend here at this moment is $4,500 for the appraisals to see, as you mentioned, if I didn't look it up, but if the house is $400,000, the appraisal is going to tell us if that's a viable offer or not. And we don't have to take it. We don't have to purchase them. We can just decide at some point, it's too rich for us. We're going to just let it go and move on. But I do think it would be good for the $4,500 to at least understand what the price appraisal would be to ascertain these parcels down there. Sometimes you get these unique opportunities if they may come before us if the price is right at some point here. And I'd hate to look down the road here and say, you know what, we should have, spent the $4,500 or whatever eventually it could be, whatever the cost would be to purchase these properties so that we can continue to improve the investment in our communities. So just my 2 cents on this one. I think it's a small dollar amount, to be frank with you, under the big picture of what the EDA does to move forward. Any other comments by EDA?
I'd like to just say that we'd be happy to run a market on the house to give a more accurate what it would be for in Cottage Grove. We never refer to Zillow as real estate agents. So if that's something you'd like, we can do that and get it over to you too.
In addition to, I'm assuming we could easily do that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it would just be more accurate than what Zillow has out there.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions or comments? All right, so before us, EDA is a motion which is before us on the screen. I'll just look for EDA to make a motion.
I'll motion to authorize the appraisal of 9165 and 8991 West Point Douglas by Patch and Messner. Valuation counselors for the total cost of $4,500 to be funded by the EDA Trust Fund.
All right, so I have a motion by EDA member Smoot. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, second by EDA member Thews. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, Matt, would you please do the roll?
EDA President Bailey?
Aye.
EDA Member Carey?
Aye.
EDA Vice President Dennett?
Aye.
EDA Member Myers?
Aye.
EDA Member Pash?
Aye.
EDA Member Smoot?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Moving along on our agenda, there are no public hearings, which is number 5. 6 is other business, which we have the EDA calendar. I know it says on there special EDA meeting Tuesday, June. Oops, I got to move it here. 30th. Okay. So sorry, my little screen thing got covered on that too. So just as a friendly reminder for the EDA, we do have a special meeting on Tuesday, June 30th. No other specific items for calendar items, I believe, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And, EDA President Bailey, if I could just state the purpose for the special EDA meeting due to calendar schedules and hopefully the last grant round for the small business awarding of those grant funds, we'd like to do it before the July meetings. Otherwise, those funds wouldn't get out to end of July, potentially early August. So hence, we're looking to do a special EDA meeting June 30th at 7:30 a.m. with City Council right after, and I'll send out an email to get everybody's availability.
All right, sounds good. All right, awesome. 6.2 is EDA comments. Are there any EDA comments by anybody on?
Mayor, I just have a question.
Yes, ED member, Vice President Dennis.
All right, thank you. Christine, have we had additional businesses put in for the second round? Or what would be actually third round?
Yes, we have had a few put in. We did give them to June 17th. So we gave them a little bit longer to apply. So, and then we'll have Ellers do their review from June 18th to the 23rd, and then bring those back to the EDA and City Council. So we have had some submit.
Okay, is it a similar number to the second round? Higher, lower?
Well, it's currently lower, but as most people operate, you know, things kind of come in at the last minute. So I have my fingers crossed.
All right, thank you.
All right, any other EDA comments? All right, 6.3 was response to previous EDA comments. I don't believe we had any during the last meeting. Number 7 is workshop, which we do not have one. 8 is adjournment. So we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion by EDA Vice President Dennis. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Was that EDA Member Smoot?
Yeah.
Thank you. So Matt, do you want to do the final roll?
Yes, thank you, EDA President. EDA President Bailey.
Aye.
EDA Member Carey.
Aye.
EDA Vice President Dennis.
Aye.
EDA Member Myers.
Aye.
EDA Member Pash. EDA Member Smoot.
Aye.
EDA Member Thewis.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We are adjourned. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you, if not before then, we'll be back together at the end of June. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.